everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to be doing some sourdough stuff. We're going to be starting our chocolate starter, and we are going to be adding in some inclusions to our little sour mini loaves for tomorrow to bake up. So let's start with our chocolate sourdough. We're going to start with a fresh new jar. We're going to put it on here. And this is a sourdough recipe that you can start using an established starter. That way it doesn't take as long to get it going. You still need to do a couple days of feeding to get it to the right, consistency and perfectness. But if you start from scratch, it takes a lot longer. So we'll be using my starter that I had started up in January after our vacation. And we're going to be adding 50 grams of starter. It doesn't have to be active or anything. It just needs to be well established. So otherwise you're kind of doing it from the start if it's just brand new. So we're going to add in 50 grams. And I'll say a little goes a long way here because that's not very much weight. And okay, close enough. Got 52, so pretty close. Okay, so we've got 50 grams of starter, and then we are going to add 100 grams of water. This is where your scale is going to be your best friend. And 100 grams of flour. I'm using bread flour, but you can use any unbleached flour. So it could be regular, like all-purpose flour. Just make sure it's unbleached. Otherwise, the fermenting process won't occur because that bleaching kills all those good bacteria you need. And we need 100 grams of flour as well. So I'll try to get there. It's going to be about 4 tablespoons or so. Heaping ones. Most. 100, perfect, right on the dot. Okay. And now we're going to add 30 grams of cocoa powder. You want to use raw cocoa powder over a processed one, just because it has a bit more of that natural bacteria and enzymes in it. Let me grab a spoon for this. And we want 30 grams of our cocoa powder, of our raw cocoa powder. Need a little bit more. I say cocoa powder must be lighter in weight than flour. Okay, so we have 30 grams of cocoa powder, and now we're going to add 30 grams of sugar. You want to use, granulated white sugar, and this is just going to help with the whole the process of kind of burning up that flour and glucogen. It's like the energy source for the active bacteria. There we go. A little bit more. Perfect. Okay, now that we have all of our ingredients in, I'm going to use my spatula here, and we are going to give it a nice, good stir up. And we're going to kind of try to mix it as well as we can. And let's try to get that water all the way down there. I might add a teensy bit more water because I do want it to not be as thick as this. So we'll add maybe 2 or 3 more grams. There we go. A little bit of water goes a long way. And then what will happen is overnight that sugar will react with the starter and the cocoa powder, and it will start that kind of fermenting process. And then in about 2 to 3 days, we'll be able to start using it in some of our recipes. So I'm going to give it a good stir Just make sure I'm trying to get all that stuff on the bottom. You see, you want to make sure it gets all mixed up well in here. There we go. So we've got ourselves a nice little starter, and it will start doing its fermentation process. So you're going to want to put I'm actually going to smooth my line down. That way I can see the bubble when it goes there. We're going to put on our cheesecloth fabric over it that lets the natural gas from the process escape. If the bottle's in, it kind of pop off. So now it's a waiting game. We're going to wait and we'll do this tomorrow. But tomorrow what we'll do is we'll be discarding half of it and then kind of adding in half the number of ingredients. Okay, well, earlier today during our dinner time, we made our sourdough for today. So this is just our basic traditional recipe, but we're going to add some special inclusions in. So I'm going to get a little bit of flour. My thing popped off there. We're going to put it out on our counter here. I always just like to start out with that so it doesn't stick. And I'm going to sprinkle a little on top. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull it out, and then we're going to divide this into 6 kind of equal loaves. Now you could sit there and wait for it to do its own drop naturally on its own, but I'm an impatient person, so I'm just going to pull it out. Starting to storm here. And we're going to put a little bit more on here. There we go. I always just like to make sure it has a nice kind of coating in the powder in it so it doesn't stick to my countertop when we're about to divide it up. Now the goal is to divide it up into as equally as you can, 6 portions. You could get a scale out if you wanted to, but it's okay if one's a little bit off. There we go. Cutting it through. I think that's about good. And these all look fairly even. Let's see if we can't break just a smidge off with each one. And that way, and the reason you want to do your 6, because we have our 6 mini bowls. So I'm just going to pull them over. And we're going to leave with just one to start with. Okay. We'll do our first one. Get a little flour out. I'm going to put a little flour in my little Banneton basket, kind of coat it around. This is going to be our plain Jane. So we're going to do what we call is the laminating process, where we kind of stretch it out into the magic rectangle. Now this is important to do to get out any of those bubbles in it so you don't get a huge kind of air pocket in your sourdough. So it's a really kind of crucial step. And then what you do is it's kind of like some origami. You're going to fold a third into a third, and then you're going to just kind of roll it up like a little burrito here. And then I'm going to shape it by kind of pinching in the sides. And that just is going to help develop that really nice crumb. And then we will place it in our little Banneton basket where we have floured with the seam up, because when we flip it out tomorrow to bake, we'll flip it out here, and that bottom one will be the pretty part. So we've got number 1 done, and that is just our plain Jane sourdough. And then we're going to do some bougie stuff with our other ones. Okay, let's get our next one here. Put out a nice layer of flour. We're going to do the lamination process, where we're going to give it a nice stretch. And I will say, you don't want to stretch it so much that it breaks, but you can pull it out in here. And this just kind of helps with that whole getting those bubbles out. So you don't want to leave any area too thick, because that's where you can get one of those big pockets develop. Okay. Trying to get this nice little stretch here. And now For this one, we are going to do a lime zest, cardamom, and sugar. So it's going to be like a lime cardamom loaf, which I love cardamom as a spice. I think it's absolutely delicious. And the lime just pairs really well with it. So we're going to give this a nice kind of bright zest over it. And I will say the smell of lime is so refreshing. There. You can never have too much. Okay, we've got a nice thing. And now let me grab my sugar over here because we're going to be using a little bit of this. You'll want to add a little bit of sugar as a sweetness. So we're going to do a nice little sprinkle over. There we go. And I will say the lime will also add a nice little sprinkle. So just about a tablespoon of sugar. And then we're going to take our cardamom here and we're going to give it a nice light shake over it because cardamom has a bit of a strong flavor, so you don't want to go too heavy, but just a nice light shake. And then we're going to have this lovely kind of lime cardamom. I don't know why I'm saying cardamom. Here, I'm going to do a little bit more lime in between this kind of layer here.
You have a question? How was dinner tonight?
It was excellent. Everybody was very happy that we had steaks. It's one of their favorite meals, and it's such an easy meal to cook. It's one of those ones where it's easy to cook, easy to clean up, and it's done pretty fast. So it was definitely a crowd pleaser tonight, and there was nothing left. We do have a couple rolls left, but other than that, there was nothing left over. Okay, give these. Trying to make it sure. There we go. So we're gonna our next one up, put it in here, and then I'm just gonna kind of seal up any of our seams. And this is our cardamom and lime loaf. Okay, let me give my hands a quick rinse here so I don't have any lime flavor going to my next one. Okay, so our next loaf, just slide all those spices to the side. Put a little bit more flour out. Our next one is just going to be a simple, but one of my favorite mini chocolate chip loaf. So I've got some mini chocolate chips that we're going to sprinkle on it, and then we'll spread it out and roll it up. So this is our lamination process. And this one's stretching nicely for me. And just again, be careful not to rip it. You want to try to keep that bottom nice and kind of smooth. There. And now I'm going to take my mini chocolate chips. You don't need to go super crazy with them. Otherwise, it will be very chocolatey. We're going to do a nice little sprinkle over. Kind of get a nice coating.
You have a question. Do you prefer the sweet or the savory one?
I actually prefer the savory. So we're doing half and half though. Well, I guess we're doing 2 sweet, 1 plain, and then the rest are savory. So I always find that the plain ones I always just eat them with like butter or whatnot. But I personally prefer a savory loaf. But I do like to have a couple sweet ones in there, especially like in the breakfast time. But as anyone knows me, I love savory foods, salty foods over sweet foods. Okay, we've got it laminated. Now we're going to kind of pinch in and pull up with the mini chocolate chips. Just be careful not to pull too tightly on it. Be more gentle ones. Otherwise, you risk it like popping through and breaking, which isn't the end of the world if it does break. It just means you'll have like when it bakes up a little burnt ones, like if the chocolate chips pop through, they might burn in the oven. And it won't ruin the taste, but they just won't be as nice if you manage to keep them all underneath a layer of dough. So there. is our chocolate chip ones. They're all hiding in there, which is perfect. And now we're going to do a cinnamon raisin one. So actually, I guess I had 3 sweet ones. Apparently, I can't count. So 3 sweet, 3 savory.
I think everyone knows that already.
I guess they do. That is true. Apparently, counting is not my strong suit.
You have a question. It's late where you are, isn't it?
It is. It is almost midnight. I'm a night owl, so I typically don't go to bed until like 12:30, 1 o'clock. But these needed to get laminated up tonight so they could go in the fridge to chill so that we can bake them tomorrow. I typically do this a lot at night, like right before I go to bed. It's part of my routine when I'm making it. And, you know, sometimes my husband will help me shape them. Whenever they look funky, it's because he shaped it. Trust me, it's the truth. There we go. So we got this nice and laminated. And this is a really easy one to do. This is my cinnamon sugar. This is just cinnamon and sugar mixed together. We eat a lot of cinnamon sugar toast. Everyone loves it. And then my daughter Lena, I make her this frappuccino and I have to sprinkle cinnamon sugar on it so it's bougie for her. So we always have cinnamon sugar. We're going to do a nice little shake of this over all the way around. And it's kind of like this. Now you could leave it just like this and it will be like a cinnamon roll and it will taste delicious. Oh, my husband glared at me. So this is going to be just a cinnamon run, no raisins because he does not like raisins and he loves the cinnamon one. So I got a glare when I touched the raisins. So I will put the raisins away. And I guess my mom loves the cinnamon raisin ones, but she is out of town. So she won't get it. He's like throwing the raisins away. Anytime I say, oh, I should make oatmeal raisin cookies, he's like, you should make oatmeal cookies. And I was like, oh, I guess you're right. We did a nice little sprinkle after we did our twirl. And then for this one, the more little layers of it you put in there, the more little cinnamon sugar layers there'll be. So I always like to do it pretty thoroughly. And now we're just going to pinch these up into it. So this is our cinnamon roll one, which is super simple and delicious. And I will say a little bit of cinnamon sugar actually puts a lot of sweetness in there. So it's more sweet than you think.
You have a question? You have a recipe book?
I don't have a recipe book, but I do upload all of our videos from our streams to the link on our page. So you can always access that. And I do have a couple of recipe cards posted. We have more in our membership area, but our sourdough one for our starter and our main loaf, which is the base for this one, is posted for everybody on the link on our page. Okay. I've got these all pinched up, making sure. Perfect.
And just so you know, everyone in the chat agrees, no raisins.
Oh, the poor raisins get all the hate. You know what? I kind of have to agree with you. I typically only add the raisins in there for my mom because I'm such a good daughter. But I agree, raisins are. Anytime people put raisins or cranberries and things, I'm just like, oh, you ruined it. So I agree. Put a little bit more out here. I'm going to sprinkle some in my 2 bannetons. And then these last 2 are going to be kind of cheese loaves. One's going to be a cheddar and green onions. The other one's going to be a Parmesan and Italian spices. So let's grab our next loaf up and we're going to give this a nice lamination. Just a stretchy stretch. I will say the mini loaves are great for if you like to do a lot of variety. And you don't want to have to bake up like 20 different loaves because that's just a lot. I got these mini little Dutch ovens that I'm going to bake them up with. But if you don't have a mini Dutch oven, you can do them in a bigger Dutch oven. Just put like, make sure there's a little bit of space between each one. Here we go. Stretching it all out. Making sure we've got a good stretch here. Okay. Got a little bit of flour in my eyes. We've got some Italian seasoning here. We don't need it to pour out. So we're going to do a nice sprinkle of Italian seasoning. You want a generous amount because you want all that flavor to pick up. And then we're going to use some kind of shredded Parmesan. This is shaved, I mean, but I'm going to break it up some. You don't need to go super heavy with it because if you make it too heavy, it will really weigh down your sourdough. Luckily, this is really thin sheets, so it works a little bit nicer than like the regular shredded because it's a little bit more pliable. And then we're going to fold, and then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more Italian seasonings, but I'm not going to do the cheese on that part because then it won't roll up as nice. And now we'll do our little roll. And this one, you got to be really careful with those cheeses because they do like to pop through. And again, it's not going to be the end of the world if they do. Just gives you not quite as pretty of a crust. There we go. And kind of getting our little pinching. I'm putting it in my little banneton with that flour in there. And then I'm going to do this last little kind of tuck and pinch. So we've got our Italian herbs and cheese. You can see our little cheese poking out there. I didn't want to pull on it anymore because I knew if I did, it was going to just keep breaking. Okay. Get our last bit of flour over here. Really dust it up. And I will say the dusting of the flour just prevents it from sticking to the countertop and ripping. So just make sure you flour it up well because you don't want it to rip after you've worked hard to shape it. There we go. And this one's going to be a green onion and cheddar cheese loaf. Here. And again, just find any of the thicker parts, stretch it out nicely. Helps get rid of any of those just big pockets that might form. And let's start with our green onions. I'm going to do some just snips on here. You could use chives too. They're a little bit more dainty, have a more stronger flavor. I feel like green onions are a bit more mild than chives. And you don't, for this is just a little loaf, so we don't need a whole lot. We're going to save a couple for the second part. And then we've got our cheddar cheese. And we're going to do our fold in. Do just a bit more right out here so you get that nice onion flavor a little bit more throughout. And then I will say I'm not going to use the white parts of it because those are a bit more chewy and a bit more stringent. And we're going to gently kind of roll this up. Now we're going to try to shape this. And now I will say this cheese is a little bit more pokey, so I'm trying to really careful not to have it poke through. There we go. A little poke, but that's okay. And we've got we'll have a nice pretty score on here. And then we are going to cover these with these little, they're like little shower cap things, but you pop them over there and these will all go in the fridge to cold proof until tomorrow when we can bake them up for dinner. Well, guys, we are done with our sourdough bonanza here. We made our chocolate sourdough starter, which is starting to settle in. And then we prepped up our 6 mini loaves using our traditional base, our loaf for the base of it. And this is a great way to take a base loaf and give it a bunch of different flavors without having to make different recipe loaves of it. And then got our last one here. And these we're going to just pop in the fridge and chill. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live kind of cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Don't forget to like and subscribe.